welcome with Ron Brumbarger, who is the president and founder of Apprentice University. So the first thing I would like to start off with is in this live Ask Me Anything session with you, Ron, is a little bit about your background rather than me just introducing you. Why don't you tell us some of your background, if you would?
Sure. Right out of school, a few years out of school, I started a technology company named Bitwise Solutions. And for nearly 25 years, I sold the business 2 years ago. For nearly 25 years, we built and managed and designed large-scale corporate websites for companies around the globe. We had about 1,200 customers over those 25 years, about 3,400 engagements, and employed hundreds of people over those years. Provided for a lot of families, provided a good income for a lot of families during that time. And I sold that company 2 years ago, and my perpetual challenge was finding talent. We'd spend all our mornings looking for customers, and then we'd spend our afternoons looking for people. And we had a program at Bitwise called Bitwise Fellows, which was a group of high school students that worked for us and took on small projects that our professionals really couldn't take the time to do. So this would be churches and clubs and very small businesses that had, $2,000 or $3,000 budget, where we needed $30,000 or $40,000 budget as a beginning price tag. And we did that for 10 years. We had about 80 some students go through that program. They're now working at major corporations around the world. You name it, they've been there. And I still keep in touch with several of them today. But through that, I got inspired to develop new talent, young talent, and have a background in education, not as necessarily as a teacher, although I do lead a class or two here. My wife and I homeschooled, mostly my wife, homeschooled our two boys. And I started Indiana's first statewide virtual charter school about 12 years ago, that ultimately had at a highlight about 4,500 students enrolled at its peak, with students really truly around the state. I've started numerous different programs. I helped run the tutelage program that my wife ran, named Master Study, where I met Angie way back in the day, and rebuilt that program from a standstill, and we took that to 365 students. And here we are now, 7 years into Apprentice University, and working on growing future talent this way. So my challenge was always, how do I find talent for Bitwise? And my senior team became increasingly frustrated interviewing new grads and said, we're not going to do it anymore. We only want people with 2 or 3 years experience. And so I decided to grow my own, and in the process of growing our own talent, realized, gee, if I need this, all my buddies need it too. So I'll start a company that Apprentice University, start a business that provides talent to lots of businesses around Central Indiana. And here we are. We've continued to evolve and develop and grow. And that's our quick startup story.
Wonderful. Maddie or Josh or anyone else in here, if you have any questions, go ahead. You can just put them in the chat. You can raise your hand, do whatever to let us know that you have questions, and we'll be happy to get those to Ron. While we wait and see if you guys have anything, then I'll go ahead and just ask you, Ron, if you might talk for just a minute about the idea of market-driven education, why we know that market-driven education is what is needed. You just spoke a little bit about it, but why do we care about skills and having experience, and a juxtaposed to the idea that everyone needs a degree, a piece of paper degree, and how CEOs and presidents of companies actually view the circumstances?
Sure. So you heard a little bit in the first segment this morning about market-driven education. And you heard Mrs. Merle talk about accreditation, that we don't seek accreditation from a traditional accrediting body that's out there. We believe that the market is the ultimate accrediting body. The market will pick and choose winners and losers, and the market will dictate where the cream of the crop go. So as an employer, with having interviewed thousands of people over the years and hired hundreds and hundreds, I will tell you, and you can ask anybody that's sat on the hiring side of the table, there are only three questions an employer wants to know. Only three. And the first is, can you do the work that I need to have done? Can you do the work that I need to have done? And might you have some evidence of that? Might you have some way to show me that you can do that work? The second one is, do I like you? Are you somebody I can work with and get excited to do work together? That's a very critical element. Regardless of what people believe, we're going to work with people we like, and we're not going to work with people we don't like. So that's a very critical second question. And the third one is, can I afford you? Those are the only three questions employers really care about. What color car you drive, where, when, why, what you studied, under whom is not on the radar of employers. They really only care about those three questions. Now, we could get into getting to know you better. We're going to ask some more questions about your hobbies and your interests and your work ethic. But really, at the top level, those are the only three questions that matter. Everything else is completely superfluous. And our corporate partners will tell you this. I can tell you this from experience of sitting on the hiring side of the table for many years, that those are really the only three pertinent questions that need to be answered.
Absolutely, and I will tell you that in our session coming up with a couple of our corporate partners, we're going to ask them this question. And we actually did it last week. We did a live session with a couple others, and again, we're going to give you that recording. That is exactly what they said. They both said that they are very much interested in what you have done, what you can do, what you can learn to do, rather than a piece of paper saying that you sat in classes and earned some degree, because that is not what they're looking for. Paige, I see that we have a question.
Maddie, I'm going to call you out, put you on the spot.
Maddie says, how have companies responded to Apprentice University graduates working for them? Excellent question.
I will tell you that we're very confident of the ability of our graduates. We're so confident of the ability of our graduates, we built a portal where our students who are preparing to graduate can prepare content and material for this portal and share the link to their portal, to this portal for their particular profile. And that link can then be distributed widely via email, LinkedIn, Facebook, however we want to distribute it. And employers can go to that link and literally make an offer. So we've had great success with that thus far. We've had 3 graduates just in the last few months go through that process and all received competitive offers. So we're very confident that the market is after the talent that we have. And not only just our graduates, but our apprentices as well. While they're in the program, they're very high demand. As Mrs. Merle mentioned in the first segment this morning, we struggle scheduling just because the demand is so high. So we know for certain that employers want our students. I get these phone calls all the time about employers wanting our students. So it's a nonstop challenge for us to fill those demands.
I will add to that, if you don't mind, that we have just in last week, 3 of our apprentices actually told us, and this is something that we hear a lot, but in 1 week, 3 of our apprentices were told by their mentors and our corporate partners that they actually want to hire them upon their graduation. So they are sitting already knowing that the offers are coming if they so choose to work in those corporate partners. Obviously, we don't state that our apprentices must go work with corporate partners. They can do anything they want, and some choose to go do other things, and we love that. But we know the ones who have decided that they want to work with corporate partners, certainly all of them that have wanted to have been hired by the corporate partners. Great question. Any other questions we can field? Okay, Ron, anything else that you would share right now?
I would talk about the importance of skills. You've heard us talk about in our courses already, as Mrs. Merle mentioned this morning, in our courses, we work on skills, not tests and grades. I would talk about the importance of skills. You know, employers are increasingly frustrated that typical college graduates do not possess critical thinking skills. This is the number one complaint employers have about new grads. This is what I faced at Bitwise. Just don't have the critical thinking skills necessary to do the work. Every one of those, there are 7 critical thinking skills. I won't bore you with the list here, but every one of those critical thinking skills we address here at Apprentice University. In fact, we have a badge in critical thinking skills. So we address every single one of those, and we hit it head on. Again, employers want to know, can you solve problems on the job? Can you add value without me having to push and pull you all along the way? So that's what employers want, and they want to know that you have the skills to do that work, much more so than I have a degree from such and such. Employers know for certain that a degree today merely represents tests and grades and mostly memorization. And 100% of people say that they learn best by doing, not by taking a test. I like the analogy of a skydiver. Think about this a minute. Would you rather learn how to skydive from somebody who has actually jumped out of an airplane and is going to go with you on the first trip, a mentor, right? Or someone who studied skydiving and is in a classroom and is going to tell you what skydiving is about because they have a degree in skydiving. So think about this a minute, right? Who would you rather have on your first trip? Somebody who's been there, done that dozens and dozens of times, or somebody who can merely talk about it?
And Ron, to go along with that, we have the question is, what's the most important skill to have in the workplace, in the workforce? And I think you kind of touched on that, but.
The most important skill by far is I would say is character, or not character, but communications, is to be a thorough, solid communicator. With that comes the attributes of critical thinking, right? That you have to be able to form a question properly to get the kind of response that's needed or the engagement from others that's needed. So communications by far is paramount. And then coupled right next to that is that critical thinking skill. Without communication, especially now, without communications, employers are rapidly going to forget you exist. And they're not going to know you're around, and they're frankly going to write you off in a hurry because you're not engaged.
Any other questions?
Good questions.
They are very good questions.
I think an observation would be important here is to, we think about skills. We talk about skills, and we talk about apprenticeships, on the job training and so forth. That is not to diminish the significance and rigor of our academics here. Maddie, I know you were in a class or two this previous session. None of that's to diminish the significance and rigor of our academic model. You still have to prepare, you still have to work, you still have to study, you still need to be ready and contribute to those classes, and then be invited to present a capstone project by your instructor, right? Just sitting in class does not earn you the right to present a capstone project. You have to be invited to do that, and that invitation comes as a result of that engagement throughout the course of the session. So we'd be remiss if we just said we're all about just working, because we are, we believe, an intricate and a delicate blend of both academics and on-the-job experiences.
It says, do you wish you could have gone through Apprentice University when preparing for your own career?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And we hear this from adult after adult after adult all the time. I wish I'd had this when I was 18, 17, 18, 19 years old. We hear this all the time. Yeah, absolutely. I would have, without beyond a shadow of a doubt, I would have taken this path. I was finished with academics my junior year in high school. I was done taking tests. I was done sitting in class. I was bored. But everybody's got to go to college, right? So that's what you do, and that's what you did, and I did so. And I made new friends, but to think that I was challenged along the way, I was challenged to memorize for test, the stress of a test. But had I had Apprentice University, I don't know where my career would have taken me, but I would have certainly had the opportunity to explore the buffet, right? The buffet of opportunities presented that we do with Apprentice University versus picking a major and going into that field as a result. Picking a major, by the way, and this is not uncommon. It wasn't uncommon then. It's not uncommon now. I picked my major my freshman year in college because my roommate, who was my best friend at the time, had this particular, I won't bore you with what it was, had this particular major. I said, that sounds kind of fun. I think I'll do that too. I had no idea what that meant. And yet today, still today, here it is 2020, people are doing the very same thing, picking a major, thinking it's going to lead to a great career because their buddy or their friend or their roommate or whomever chose that field. And that's not how to do it, I assure you.
I would encourage you guys to come back. We're going to have, like I said, the instructors and then the couple corporate partners who I will tell you a couple of the questions that you've asked were actually asked of corporate partners last week. And they had some really interesting things to say in agreement with what Ron has just spoken about now. And I have the feel I will be asking our corporate partners a very similar questions here later on this afternoon. And so if you want to engage in that, we will be asking them a series of questions and then we'll open up to everyone that joins us. So if you all don't have any more questions right now for the Ask Me Anything session, we'll go ahead and sign off and hopefully see you later then this afternoon. Thanks for joining us.